everyone and welcome to FCA Friday. I realize that in comparison to most of my videos I look very plain and unexciting, but I've been very stressed for the past couple weeks. Just life has gotten very upsetting. But let's get into FCA Friday. Enough about that. We are going to be talking about one of my favorite comics ever, and that is Calvin and Hobbes. Calvin and Hobbes are very classic, they're iconic, and Bill Watterson is a genius. He's a genius in every sense of the word. He was an amazing artist. He was able to make things both funny and meaningful, and he did so with dignity and integrity. He was a brilliant mind. And that is, he was able to, as an adult, remember what it was like to be a child, because if you don't know, his main people, if you don't know who Bill Watterson is, or Calvin and Hobbes, this is Calvin, a 6-year-old boy, and this is his stuffed tiger, Hobbes. Now, the amazing thing, let me find it real quick, but one of the amazing things about Calvin and Hobbes is that Hobbes, there's this blurred line with Hobbes, because majority of the time in the comics, Hobbes is a living, talking, individually thinking character who is his best friend. But, and I'm trying to find an example of it, I should have looked it up beforehand, but it's amazing how the two of them are sort of amazing, because Calvin and Hobbes are of course based off of the philosophers and the writers, and Calvin is he's amazingly smart, but still a 6-year-old kid. The line blurs between Hobbes's identity, because when he's around other people, so most of the time he is seen as his own speaking entity and friend who can move of his own accord and have his own independent thoughts. But when grown-ups are often brought into it, Calvin's parents, he turns into a stuffed tiger again. So let's see, I believe you can see it over here where he turns into a stuffed tiger. And whenever other people are around, Susie, one of the neighbors, his neighbor, who's a girl that he does not like / kind of likes, it's unclear whether she sees Hobbes as a stuffed tiger or not. The line kind of gets blurred between them. But what makes these genius is that Bill Watterson is able to capture what it was like to be a child. I completely took that out, but there was a thing where it shows him being unable to, he skins his knee in one of them, and when no one's around, he says, ow, 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 and then he looks around, there's nobody there, he walks all the way back into his house, and then when he sees his mom, he starts yelling, ow, 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 about his skinned knee, something that children do. If no one's around, then they're just fine, and then the slightest incident, they cry and are upset. But there's lots of philosophical contemplations that happen, and one of them is, like in this comic, where they're standing on the sidewalk, and Calvin brings up the question with Hobbes of, supposing that one end of the sidewalk is life, and as you walk across it, you realize that your life is fleeting. And here he says, have we made the most of these precious few footsteps? And then they're both contemplating this at the end of it. Those are very deep, adult, philosophical questions. But at the same time, he's 6 and he needs to be taught things. And I love reading the comics because, one, they're funny, but two, they philosophically mean something. He touches on some interesting subject matters. Like, at one point, Calvin finds a dying baby raccoon, and they're unable to save it. And so it touches on death. They find a dead bird and another one, and the questions get talked about how delicate things are. Hobbes is often like Calvin's conscience. Some people interpret Hobbes as Calvin's conscience, like the little voice in the back of your friend being materialized, because he always comes up and says, why are you doing this? You really shouldn't be doing that. During the Christmas ones, Calvin isn't sure if he can overcome his desire to misbehave in order to get presents. And Hobbes is always telling him, you shouldn't take your parents' things. You shouldn't fix the faucet. But at the same time, Hobbes always goes along with whatever Calvin does. And, they both, you see them practicing armpit farts, whatever you call them. That's a 6-year-old thing to do. And, they both agree about things like burping and bugs and gross stuff. And so you get to see this interesting buildup of, is this person talking to themselves? Is this a child's stuffed animal? Or is it a personified version of the unconscious mind or the voice in the back of your head? And it ran for a long time. And the reason why I said Bill Watterson has integrity is because he loved to write the comics, but he didn't sell into merchandise. You'll get a lot of the things with Calvin's parents, which, those are the adult things. Not only do you get this childishness, but there are things about being a parent and how hard it can be to be a parent and joining the rat race and all kinds of stuff like that. And Bill Watterson clearly is against commercialization and just overproduction and conglomerates. And so when he was approached, he was approached to do a cartoon and have merchandise, and Bill Watterson just stopped. He stopped doing everything Calvin and Hobbes. He said no, that he wasn't selling the name Calvin and Hobbes to anybody. Nobody was going to get to make any merchandise off of it. He put a full patent on it so that all we can get are the original designed books from Bill Watterson. And he, of course, did the Sunday strips from when the comics were put in. And that says a lot of honor, where there could have been money, there was money to be made, because it was a name that people wanted more. And he didn't give into it. He didn't give into productivity and commercialization. He said he wanted people to enjoy the comics as they were presented. He was met with criticism, as everything is, no matter how good, great, or just phenomenal as the comics are, everything gets criticized. And Bill Watterson had a lot of criticism coming from the parenting, mostly, because Calvin's parents don't have names. They call each other dear and honey when in reference to each other, or they just don't address each other at all. They're just mom and dad with no names. His teacher is called Miss Wormwood, and then the principal is just the principal. He's never given a name either. The only other named character, Calvin doesn't have a last name. The character that does have a last name is Susie Durkins, the neighbor that he has sometimes he plays with, he usually hates kind of relationship. And the criticisms came up with that Calvin's parents do not like having him. Now, if you read the comics, all the comics, or you've read them for a long time, Calvin is a horrible child. He blatantly disregards the rules. He does things irrationally. A lot of his active imagination, like baseballs and bicycles attacking him, caused the house to be torn up. He tries to catch insects from inside of the house with baseball bats. And he always causes turmoil he's such a bad kid that there's only one person in the entire town that's willing to babysit him, and she charges his parents a lot of money, according to the comics, to babysit Calvin because he is such a terror. But his parents often make very derogatory remarks towards Calvin, such as there's one comic where Calvin walks by his mom and says, "Hi, it's me, your big accomplishment in life." And in the next strip, it shows the mom looking very sad on the couch talking to her husband, saying that she's depressed. And there's often commentary around what a bad child he is. There's discussions in the comics of his parents saying, do you regret having kids? Well, I can't. And it's brought up that they regret and dislike that they had their child. And the dad is very, very unusual, and the mom is clearly overrun with responsibilities of the house. And it becomes, but they both show very much, they care for Calvin, they take him on vacation, they want to know where he is, they try to discipline him, and he's just a bad child. But people were like, well, if your parents always made derogatory and hurtful remarks about your existence, as Calvin's parents often do, wouldn't you revolt and be mad too? But I think that people overreact to things too much, like people look into it a little too much. These are philosophical, observations. People don't like their kids all the time. Okay, if you have a child who constantly misbehaves despite any kind of parenting techniques that you use, then you are somebody who drives you nuts and who does things against you intentionally, as Calvin does to his parents. You're going to dislike them, whether they're your child or not. You can love them and dislike them at the same time. It's not that uncommon. And so I just wanted to share with you my deep love and appreciation for Bill Watterson's amazing, brilliant work. There are, I believe, 19 or 15, I forget the number, of books that were released. I only own 5 of them, unfortunately. But they are amazing. The artistry is consistent. You can see the development between the older and the newer comics. And it's really great. I think they're funny and definitely worth looking into. And I will see you all for Makeup Monday and FCA Friday next week. And hopefully I'll be able to get myself out of this little funk that I've been in, which is part of the reason why I wanted to share something funny and heartfelt and uplifting with everyone, because I have just been, I haven't been feeling my top game. And I need to boost myself. So I hope that your week is going better. I hope that whatever you're going through is rough and, is not rough and is getting better. And if it is rough, pick yourself up some Calvin and Hobbes. I'm not sponsored in any way, shape, or form. It's impossible for me to be sponsored by Bill Watterson. And I will see you next week. Bye.